Hi everyone, today I have another gouache tutorial for you guys. This one is going to be of the night cityscape paintings that I've been doing on Instagram. This one was highly requested, so I'm going to show you in real time how I painted this exact one. I've been doing a few of these and I've been really enjoying them. I'm going to be using the hemi gouache today. So I have the gouache here. I haven't used it in a few days, I think. So if I just open it up, you can see it's still really fresh. I just spray it every now and then when I remember, so maybe once or twice a week. And when I'm using it, I tend to spray it a lot. So before I start this, I'll just give it another spray. So I haven't had any issues with these drying out, which is good. The paper I'm using is A6 size, so it's half of the size I usually paint on. So this painting shouldn't take me too long to do. Then I have my 2 jars of water and a cloth. And I think I'll just be using these 3 brushes today. So I've got a flat brush, a round brush in size 3, and a liner brush. So this is for doing the really fine details. And these 2 are both Princeton brushes. I'll link all the materials I'm using below if you guys are interested. And before I start painting, I just want to say thank you guys so much for 10K. I'm going to be doing a little giveaway at the end. I'll leave a timestamp below for when I talk about the giveaway, so you can skip ahead to that if you want, but I'll be talking about it right at the very end. But I just wanted to say thank you guys so much for all your support on this channel. I am really grateful and I'm really excited to be making more videos and more tutorials for you guys. Alright, so let's get started with the painting today. So the reference image, I will also link it below so you can refer to that. So when I start, I always just do a quick pencil sketch. So for this one, we're going to have the sky at maybe about a bit less than halfway. And then I'm just going to quickly mark in where I think the mountains are. So this doesn't have to be too precise. I like to just do this quickly before I start a painting so I kind of get an idea of where everything needs to go. And I just do it very lightly with my pencil. Alright, so once I've done that, I think I can just leave it. I might just lighten the lines over here a little bit. But since the rest of the painting is quite dark, I'm not going to worry too much about the lines that I made because it can easily be covered up by the dark paint. Okay, so now we can start with the painting. As always, I'm going to start with the sky. So I'm going to use my flat brush, and when I start, I just kind of soak it through a little bit just to get bristles to be wet, and then I can pick up my first color. So it's a really dark blue. So I'm going to use the Prussian blue. I find that I use this color quite a bit from the hemi gouache. So I'm using the Prussian blue, and then I like to add black to it to darken it. And I'm going to start just placing the color up at the very top. So because my paper is very small, I'm going to be doing this quite quickly. If you're painting on a larger piece of paper, it might take you a little bit longer to paint in the sky. And then I'm going to start lightening it. So I have my palette knife that I'm going to use to pick up white paint. I know a lot of you guys gave me tips about how I could keep the light colors clean, and that was to use a palette knife, which has been working just fine. So that's how I've managed to keep my paint colors very clean. I don't like to muddy them, so I use a palette knife for the light colors. Okay, so we've just added in some white and we're going to start transitioning it down a little. Now the sky is also a little bit green tone, just a tiny bit, so I'm going to need a bit of yellow as well. I have a bit of leftover yellow that I'm just going to add in to the paint, and I just want to mix like a blue that has a touch of green in it. And as I move down, I'm going to keep adding white. So I think I need a little bit more yellow actually. I want it to be a bit more green. Then I'm going to keep adding white to it to lighten it. Now as I kind of go down, it's going to transition into white and then into orange. So I'm going to wash off my brush completely. So I'm going to get all the paint off of it, and then once it's quite clean, then I'll go into the white and I'll just pick up some white, and with the white I'm actually just going to paint it straight onto the paper. Because that way it's going to mix naturally with the green we just put down above it. So I'm just going to kind of lighten it like that. And try to blend that out. And I tend to wash my brush off quite a bit so that I'm not mixing too much of the color on my brush into the paint. And I'm going to do the same thing again. I just want to add some more white and lighten this area. And again, washing off my brush so I get a nice clean brush to blend the colors on the paper. Okay, so I actually want this part to be white, but the paint is a bit wet, so it's going to keep mixing with my white if I try to put it down. So I might let it dry before I try to put down another layer of white on it. Okay, so now I'm going to try and put in the white more carefully, because this time I actually do want it to be white. I don't just want to lighten the green. I'm going to try put in a clear line of white. And you can blend the top line so that way it's nice and smooth, but everything below I want it to be an opaque white. So I'm layering the paint on quite thick, and I'm being careful not to lift the colors underneath. Just going to make sure this part is completely white. because the next thing we're going to do is we are going to transition this into an orange. Okay. So for the orange, I'll use this color. And I'll just mix in a little bit of white with it. And I might add in some yellow as well. Alright, then I'm going to first put a line just down here. And I'm going to bring it up, so I'm going to add more white to it, maybe a bit more yellow, and start to blend out this line. And maybe a bit more yellow and a bit more white. Now I'm going to need to blend this out with the white, so I need to wash off my brush again. And again, I'm going to just pick up some of the pure white paint and try and carefully blend out that line we just put in. So I'll slowly bring it down so I get a nice gradual transition. The orange is a little bit intense for me, so I think I'll just try and lighten it a bit more. Okay, just want to add in a little bit more white, so I'm just going to add it in here and just blend it out again. Alright, so I don't want to overdo that part, so I'm just going to leave it. So that's pretty much the sky. Then for the mountains, we're going to start with, so we're going to work downwards again. So we can start with this part where it's kind of, it's like brown and kind of light and it's just distant. So for that, we're going to use burnt umber. And because my painting is so small, I might actually switch to my round brush. So I'm going to switch to my smaller round brush. So I'm going to use this brush and using the burnt umber. Going to mix that with maybe a little bit of black, just a tiny bit. And a little bit of white as well. And just paint in here, so it's a little bit dark. I'm going to add more white into it. I want it to be a bit more orangey, so I'm going to add in a bit of this color and lighten it. I might lighten it even further. I think I painted in a little bit too dark. And I just want it to be a bit more vibrant. Maybe I shouldn't have added in the black before. It's still a bit dark, so I've washed off my brush and I'm going to go in with more white. and just pick up this color this time and just lighten it a lot, and I'm going to put it right below here. Okay, it's a bit too pink, so adding in some burnt umber. Okay, so I'm going to start painting in some of the mountains as well, just kind of get the shape of them in. So they're a really dark brown, almost black, so I'm just going to mix black with burnt umber. I'm just going to outline where they go so I can see the first one should go about here. I might make it a little bit more brown. And there's one around here. And another one just here. And you've kind of got a main one here. So this one goes up past the sky a little bit. Right, so this doesn't have to be too perfect. I just want to get an idea of where they go. And I'm going to put in a few more of the main ones. So there's one here. And one here. So you can see it's a little bit different from where my initial pencil lines were, because the sky ended up taking up more space than I planned for. So I'm kind of shifting everything down, which is why I want to just paint in where the mountains go, so I know what I'm working with. And then I'll just paint in some of the ones on this side. So there is a main one kind of here. And here. Okay, not going to be too precise about it. So before I go on, if you're using acrylic paint or acrylic gouache to paint this, then you don't need to be as careful. What you can do is you can paint in the base layer first, so you can paint in all of the mountains and then you can paint in all the lights on top. I'm being a little bit more careful because I'm using traditional gouache, because it can be reactivated. So when you're painting lights on top of the dark colors, if you're not careful, it can muddy. So when I paint paintings like this where I have to paint really light colors on top, I try to map out where the light colors go, and then I'll try to paint around it a little bit just so I can get some nice clean lines, and I'll show you what I mean by that. But if you're using acrylic or acrylic gouache, then you don't have to follow it the same way. You can actually just paint in the base layer first and not worry about the colors muddying or anything. Alright, so now that we've mapped it out, let's actually go ahead and kind of paint in this area. We'll work on it section by section, so let's work on this area. Or actually what we can do is we can actually paint in this part first, since it's not really affected by anything else. So this part's very dark. I'm going to use mostly just black paint, so let's just block that in, since that one is quite easy to do. So I'm just going to block in this whole area. Okay, so I filled in this part. Let's go back and work on this area here. So this part gets a little bit lighter, so using the same brown as before, but maybe adding in a bit more white to it. And just going to fill in the rest of this area. It's also a little bit orange toned, so I'm going to mix in some orange and maybe a bit more white. Then I'm going to fill in some of the surrounding areas, so this part. And another thing to keep in mind is when it comes to painting the silhouettes of mountains, the top is darker and then it gets lighter as you move down. So if you've seen one of my other painting tutorials, I did one on painting mountains, and I explained how to create the illusion of realistic looking mountains. It's quite simple. You just make sure the top is darker and it kind of just gets lighter and lighter. So for example, when I'm filling in the rest of this part, I just make sure that it gets lighter as I move down. So I try to blend it out like this. I'm going to add a bit more white in so I can blend it out with the rest of the paint. Just adding in a bit more brown. Okay, so just trying to blend this out into a smooth transition where it gets lighter and lighter. And then after that, we can actually start painting in some of the lights around here. Also just want to fill in this part above the mountain as well. So that part's done. We actually won't start painting in the lights now because the paint is still wet. So another important thing to remember is you have to make sure this layer is completely dry before you try to paint in the lights on top. So instead of painting in the lights, let's keep moving down. I'm going to fill in this area as well, and then we can come back and paint the light in all at once. So there's another mountain here, so we're going to do the same thing. You can see I painted in the dark line at the top. Now we just need to kind of transition it to be a bit lighter. So I'm going to do the same thing, and I'm just using burnt umber mixed with a bit of black, and then I just mix it with white as I move down. So moving down a bit, it's just going to get lighter and lighter. And then there's some more mountains here, so it's darker again here. So at the very top, I make sure it's quite dark. So it kind of looks like these two mountains blended in together. I just need to make this part, the top of this mountain a bit darker, so that way it's separated. So to make it dark, I just use black and I go over the outline. And that way it's nice and obvious where this next mountain starts. It's not as obvious on camera, but it is obvious in person. So again, I just do the same thing, kind of just move down. And with this mountain here, I might darken as well. I'm going to paint the very top line in with pure black paint. And again, for the next set of mountains below this one, I'm using black paint first just to outline the top of it. So let's actually work on the lights in this section before we move on to the rest of the painting. For the lights, I am going to switch to my liner brush, or you could use a brush that comes to a really pointy tip. This brush that I was using before would work as well, but for greater precision and just to make things a little easier, I'm going to use this brush. So the lights are yellowish, orange and white. I usually start with yellow since it's more obvious, so we can easily place them in. We're just going to use a pure yellow paint with some white. Might just bring some over, and just mix that together, maybe a bit more yellow. And then we can just start dotting it in. So this is the fun part. It's kind of like you're turning on the lights in the city. So you can just dot it in like this. And the smaller you can get them to be, the more realistic it will look, especially because these lights are very far away. They're very, very tiny. So you want them to be tiny, tiny little dots. So I'm being very light-handed with this, even though my brush is already so thin. If I put too much pressure, then the dots will come out kind of large, and I really do want to keep them as small as possible. So this part can be a little tedious, especially if you're working with a big piece, because you just have to build it up. You have to use a lot of tiny little dots to suggest these lights in the city. Okay, let's just do these few lights for now. I actually realized that this part in the mountain is a little bit dark, so I'm going to lighten it up because it's kind of blended in with the mountain below it. So I'm going to use white paint and some burnt umber and just lighten this part so it's easier for me to work with later, so I can actually see which part is what. I need some more burnt umber. Okay, that's a little bit more clear. We can go back to painting in the lights from before. Now I'm going to paint in the orange lights. So for that, I will use this orange color down here. So I'll mix it over here, and I might mix in some yellow as well to it. So we get a nice orangey color, and we're just going to do the same thing as before. If it's not obvious enough, you can just add in a bit more white. So if the orange is a bit too dark, it might blend in with the background. So just add in some more white so it's a little bit lighter. And I might actually start working on this part as well, since I fixed up the paint here. So I'm going to start painting in some of the lights here as well. I'm going to switch back to my yellow paint first, because yellow is brighter, a bit more obvious, so I can map in where the lights go first. And then I like to go in with the orange and just add some more different colored lights. And I'm going to switch to white paint now, so I'm just going to use pure white paint. And if you find your paint might be drying on your palette, you can just spray it a bit. That's what I like to do every now and then. And I also like to just spray my hemi gouache as well. So I just sprayed the whole thing just to keep it nice and wet, since it's out in the open. I don't want it to be drying. So using the white paint, I'm going to start dotting in some white lights as well. And going to switch back to my orange paint again, just to put in a few dots over on this side that I haven't done yet. So adding in a bit of orange light over here. Okay, that's all I'm going to do, but before I move on, I actually noticed that this part is a little bit too bright. I'm actually going to darken it a bit, so I'm going to use some burnt umber. Okay, let's keep going. So I actually ended up covering up this part because I felt like it was a little bit light, but if yours is okay, you can leave it. I'm going to let this part dry, and I'll come back and do the lights again just in this area because it was just too bright for me, but now I think it is okay. So let's keep moving down and we'll work in this section now. So the mountains here are just brownish black, so I'm just going to fill this part in again with burnt umber and black. And I just add in more white as I move down, so I make sure the bottom part is lighter. And then I'm also going to work on the mountains on this side. So again, using some black and painting in the outline of the top. Okay, so before I fill in the rest of this area, I will paint in the lines for the light. The reason I do this is because with traditional gouache, it's hard to paint in a light color on top of the dark color. It's okay when we're just painting in individual dots like this. It's easier to let the colors not muddy, but when you want to paint in, say, a long line of a light color, you can pick up the paint underneath more easily. So I'm going to do it first, and that way I can work around it afterwards. So with some yellow paint, I will paint in a line first so we know where the lights need to go. So for example, they kind of extend from here around to here, and it doesn't matter if this line isn't perfect because you can kind of just do it again and again until you get it right, since we can cover up any mistakes with the mountains. So here, and it kind of just winds in and out like that, and it goes up into here and goes somewhere around there. And that's all we really need to do. Then we can map in any other long lines. So we just want to paint in long lines. So for example, there's kind of a line around here. And that's all I'm going to do. Then I think I'll start painting in some lights in this section. So I'm using the same yellow paint. And because I covered up the lights in this section, I'm going to quickly paint those in as well. And I'll also start painting in some other lights on this side because it actually helps me to see where the mountains are. So sometimes you actually need the lights to help you see the shape of the mountain. Okay, now we can actually just fill in the rest of the mountains here. So in this area, there's some lighter patches, so I'm going to use some burnt umber and the ochre color and mix that with white and just paint some lighter patches in. And the rest of the area is pretty dark, so just using black and burnt umber. And we just want to paint around the yellow light that we painted in before, so that line of yellow, we're going to paint around it. Okay, now we just have to let this area dry before we start painting in the lights. I will go back to this area and start working on the lights here while we wait for the other part to dry. So I'm going to put in some more orange lights in that section. And I'm going to just kind of look around and see which areas I can just add in a few more lights while I'm just waiting for the other area to dry. So most of it is dry now, so I'll start working on it. So I might just start around here, and I'm just going to start with orange this time and just kind of paint in where I can see a lot of orange lights. I might actually switch to yellow first so I can more easily and more clearly map out where all the lights go. Okay, I might go back into my brown paint and just fix up some areas. For example, I kind of want to cover up this line of yellow because I feel like it's a little bit out of place. So I'm going to just cover it up. And also for any lines that are too thick, for example, this yellow line, I'm just going to make it a little bit thinner so it looks a bit more realistic. So we've pretty much got the whole skeleton of where the lights should go. So now it's just a matter of just adding in more lights to it and just kind of adjusting it to how you like. So I'm going to keep adding more orange lights now. Now I'm using pure white paint and I'm going to just highlight a few more areas that I want to be really bright. So this last part, it's really up to you how detailed you want to go with it. If you're painting on a larger piece of paper, then you'll probably spend a lot more time just painting in all these little lights. But I think because my painting is quite small, I am happy with how it looks. So I think I'll actually just leave it at that. Alright guys, so that is it for this tutorial. That's all there really is to painting in these city light night scenes. You can take the techniques you've learned from this video and definitely apply it to other similar paintings. I hope this real-time tutorial was helpful. And now for the giveaway. So as a celebration for hitting 10k subscribers, I'm going to actually be giving away this painting that I just did. So this is just a small token of my appreciation to say thank you guys. And to enter this giveaway, all you have to do is just comment down below and just let me know how you came across my channel, because I'm really curious to know. So just leave a comment down below and I will announce the winner probably in my next video. I will put all the details of the giveaway in the description, so have a look at that. Unfortunately, because of shipping restrictions right now, I will only be able to open this giveaway to select countries, and I'll list those countries in the description as well. So have a look there for all the details, but for now, thank you guys for watching this tutorial, and if you followed along, then feel free to tag me on Instagram so I can see your version of this painting, because I'd really love to see it. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you in my next video. Bye bye.